This is Changemakers with Katie Goar, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Today's changemaker is Sean Gilbert, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Valley Housing Services and President of NAHRO, where he represents more than 26,000 housing professionals across the nation. With decades of experience leading housing authorities across Kentucky and Tennessee, Sean has built a career with expertise in affordable housing and really helping communities thrive. Sean, welcome to the Changemakers podcast.
Good morning, Katie. Good afternoon now. Great to be with you.
It's great to have you, and I want to hear all about everything NAHRO, everything Kentucky, Tennessee, housing. So we have a lot to get to. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know we just saw each other in Nashville, and I want to talk about the NAHRO platform. But first, let's get to know you. Why don't you start by telling us maybe how you got into affordable housing or just what your early days look like, and then we'll fast forward to the current days.
Sure. Well, I grew up in southern West Virginia in Hatfield-McCoy country on the Kentucky line. So I grew up in an area that always struggled. There was never, I grew up in an area that had the have-nots, but none of the haves. So growing up, I saw the sense and value of community because everyone around me, I didn't know it, where a lot of people were on Section 8. I grew up playing in the courts, which I later found out were the apartment complexes or the projects, as they would call them around me. I didn't know what that was. I just knew these were my neighbors and my friends, and we took care of each other. And during those days, I saw the struggle. And, there's value in struggle as well as just the value in the accomplishments. So I saw the value of people striving, trying to do better, but I saw that it took a community to make this. I tell people all the time, you can have a home, a house, but you can't have a home without community.
Mm-hmm.
All these people, even though they didn't have much, none of us had much, we all had home and we all had community. And I knew growing up that as I moved away and went to school, I saw, this isn't the world. Everyone doesn't have to struggle.
Right.
Everywhere you're at doesn't have to be a perpetual struggle, a perpetual uphill climb. So as when I got out of college, I moved away, and I realized that my heart was really in public service. So I've been lucky and blessed enough ever since I was in my mid-20s. I've never had a job that I didn't consider a career move, and I also never had a position that wasn't in the public realm helping people. And, as I moved around, I ended up sort of getting back towards home after circulating around and realizing that, there's still that need there. There's always going to be that need there. And I was working in public service, and I saw a position at the Housing Authority in Pikeville, Kentucky, and I said, well, that sounds like something that would help a lot of people. And I put in the application, never really thought about it, got the position, and it just started down this path of, I'm blessed in the fact that a lot of people don't find their calling, or they don't find what their role in life is. And I really, truly feel that, people say they fall into these positions, but I really, truly believe you're placed in the opportunity to see what that is. I think I was placed in that situation, and I saw, there's nothing better than to give somebody that doesn't have anything a set of keys, and to see their face and to see the kids go in and say, wow, this is mine. And things that we take for granted. So that's sort of my past as far as getting into housing and how it happened. And, it's just been a blessing from day one.
Several of us who have had what I would say is a bumpy first start, or some housing instability, some reroutes in life. I describe mine. I think that faith, education, and a very stubborn single mom helped me get through that phase of life. Is there a similar 3 things that you could say that took you from where you were to where you are?
Well, I think you hit that pretty well. You got to have a strong family, and I was really blessed to have a family that supported me. But I was also blessed to see the unfortunate situations when people didn't have that. And I hate the word blessed, but you got to take it and turn it into something positive. Most of the people I grew up with are either dead or they're in jail with drugs, or they're successful, and a lot of that comes just from you know, the fact that they had strong family environments. And the second thing is community. I used sports growing up to stay involved
Okay.
and keep myself out of trouble. So many of my friends that didn't have those avenues ended up doing things that they paid for later. And education, my parents, I'm one of the first on my mother's side, I think, to graduate from college. So, and I was able to utilize that to get away because, if you stay on the same page, your whole life's a book, and you can stay on that same page over and over again in the same location. And getting away really showed me that, you live there the whole time. You think that's the way the whole world is. And getting away really showed me that, there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many things that to see and to learn and to do. And, you know, and that really set the stage for my going back and really hopefully making a difference and pushing the ball forward.
Well, let's talk about that. You definitely are making a difference in the Tennessee Valley here. So, what are you guys doing there? What's your role? How many people are you serving? Why don't you tell us about your current position?
Sure, sure. I've been blessed. I've been in Eastern Kentucky with smaller communities, and then I was in Knoxville at KCDC for quite a few years, and now I'm here. So I've had the rural and I've had the urban, and now I'm sort of the suburban community, and variety of sizes of agencies. And this is really nice because it's sort of that sweet spot in between. We have 11, 1,200 units that we either administer through a public housing or RAD program or Section 8. And so you can make an impact and you can see it more, much like it when I was in Kentucky. So I came here and we were sort of a static agency. We did our public housing, we did our Section 8. And we didn't really go outside of our lane. Well, I've never really done well at drawing within the lines. So we have to, start saying, well, how can we make, we operate a bid shop, but how do we expand that
Hmm.
opportunity to make sure that our people have hope and opportunity, that if you want to live here, we're here for you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to give you and your kids the opportunities that we can. But how can we expand that? So we're actively in the process of converting our entire portfolio through the RAD program
Okay.
to the Section 8 format. Within the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll close on a deal to a $20 million FHA 221D4 loan to take the properties around my office, about 416 units, to put that major emphasis into remodeling these units. These units were built in 1952, some of them. So we're sitting here at 75 years old. HUD has not, shown the willpower. Congress has not shown the willpower and the determination to make sure that we're meeting all of our capital needs. So now housing authorities have to be resourceful and start, whether you're in an urban area, a large agency, or a small agency, to look for a way to remodel and make these units into something that people will be proud to live in. And I'm reticent to use the word units because I want them to be homes. But the way you do that is we've also focused on our resident services side of it to make sure that we have the services for our residents to have their kids having educational opportunities. They have access to computers, to have access to clothing. We looked, Dolly Parton's Imagination Libraries operated out of our resource center. So all of these things to make sure that our residents aren't just provided housing, they're provided home. And we're also starting for the first time ever to get in. We were just awarded our first tax credit um, allocation. So we're getting ready to start on the building on that. So we're getting into areas that a lot of traditional housing authorities in rural suburban communities, I believe, should be looking at to expand not only their portfolio, but we have such a need. There's so many people out there. I could lease units all day long. Well, I can't lease the units up if I don't have them. So we got to start expanding into those areas.
Right. So do you, I mean, you've got multiple financing packages and deals and development going on. You could lease as many units as you could probably get allocated for. Do you have a sense of what that universe is? I mean, is it 10,000? Is it, some astronomical number with a bunch of zeros? Or do you have a sense of what that need would look like? Maybe even today and the near term. What are your projections?
Sure. We operate in 5 counties, so it varies from county to county. We're just outside of Knoxville, so we're partly a bedroom community for Knoxville. We're about 45 minutes away, but we're also one of the largest, smallest MSAs, but we're also one of the bigger manufacturing MSAs.
Okay.
So we have to work that balance in between just creating affordable housing and creating workforce housing.
Okay.
So, because we have, so many of the companies and manufacturers around here are followed and say, Sean, I don't have the people to staff my company. And we're like, we're here for you and we want to work with you. So we're also talking to the city right now about using tax increment financing to develop units for sale units. And we would be the TIF agent going through here. So we're trying to work in all those arenas. As far as numbers, it's hard to tell because where we butt right up against Knoxville's MSA and we bleed into each other, I think they're building like crazy. We can definitely build another probably 1,000 units between workforce and between just affordable. And I don't know if that would meet the need.
I've heard the same thing from several other podcast guests. I'm thinking of Greta Harris in North Carolina. You've got, it doesn't matter what the size of the community is. People are getting phone calls from employers who are saying, I want to move here. I want to expand. My people can't find housing though. Or their commutes are so long out to what they can afford. They can't come in. They don't stay long because the turnover. And you're zooming in on a reality here that impacts economic policy because of the fingers that it has in the labor market. And how does your community boom if it can't have housing for the workers? I mean, that's a legitimate question on economic sustainability for a community.
Yeah, exactly. All the time I'm telling people housing is economic development. If you can't have the economic development side of it if you don't have the workforce. So I'm working with the group here between East Tennessee and Southwest Virginia that it's a very rural community, but they're starting to understand that we can't grow and thrive if we don't have housing, and not just housing, we got to have affordable housing. Because I can drive up the street and I can see all kinds of $350,000, $450,000, $550,000, $650,000 homes being built, but trying to find that $200,000 to $250,000 dollar house is tough in today's market. So you have to be creative to get those in. So, but the biggest thing I'm seeing is that people are starting to understand that. The word housing crisis isn't just a word or 2 words out there now. They're saying,
Yeah.
it's affecting me because I can't get workers. Downtown Knoxville in their square, and I used to use this analogy all the time when I worked there, there's a Tupelo Honey, which is a local chain restaurant. You'd walk in, and I'm not picking on Tupelo Honey, you would have a 2-hour wait. The restaurant would be half full.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the capacity of the restaurant. It's because they don't have employees that live close enough and can get to work.
Right.
So how do you combat that? And that's exactly what we started doing in Knoxville and what they're still continuing to do. They're building near the downtown. They're building in places that people can get to work to make sure that you're not inconvenienced when you go downtown and want to grab something to eat.
Right.
And that's the key to all of this, is that we got to verbalize this. We got to tell that story.
Yep.
We got to continue to tell that story that, yeah, they'll go in there and think because the place is half full that you have a 2-hour wait, but there's an issue. There is the one issue, and that's they don't have the employees that live close enough and to have affordable housing to live close enough.
Right. Let me loop back to something you said about your learning centers, your vision centers. I imagine. I think that's what you said. You called them the Imagine Center. Everybody loves Dolly Parton, even if you're not a country music fan. I believe you quoted her in your NAHRO speech. Tell us about that partnership. How did it happen? Brag on your team a little here as to what you guys have done.
Sure. It's Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and I'm fortunate, she's from Sevierville, which is just in between Knoxville and where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't met her, but you hear this, Dolly, I would like to meet you.
Well, let's manifest it. Dolly
Make
and
it
Sean, like let's do a meet and greet. Let's make it happen.
There you go. But we have the Hamlin County, that's the County Imagination Library, and I serve on that board. And, the goal of that board, just so people knows, is that every child below the age of 5 would get a book a month and for 60 months to combat the literacy issue that we have across the country. So there was a situation to where they didn't have a home. They were losing their home.
Mm-hmm.
And we had space. And I'm like, this is just kismet. We need you here in our community. So we located them, we charged them a whole $1 a year to be there just for bookkeeping
Right.
records.
Yeah.
But then now they participate. We've been able to work with them, and they've done this on their own, really, to have the old bookmobiles that you have. So now Dolly's got her bookmobile here locally, and we have books on site, that we have their volunteer staff on site. So when we have an event, they show up. We just had her back to school bash last week. I was the first one I've missed because I was in Nashville with you. And every one of those kids got a book.
Yeah.
Every one of these kids got school supplies. Every one of those kids at Christmas time, they were there dressed up like the Grinch, reading the Grinch story and making sure the kids have books and get signed up. And they operate that out of our shop, not just for our people, but for everyone in the county. You get signed up when you're born in the county for that program.
Mm-hmm.
We have signups here. So it's just a great way to show, get these kids excited in reading.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the key indicators for the third graders, 8-year-olds, is 10 years later, they're basing, to a large degree, the number of jail cells we need on third grade reading level. So I would much rather us be building libraries than prisons.
Right.
And if we can combat that, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to continue to do that, provide those type of educational opportunities for our kids. It's going to make our lives so much easier if these kids are going to school and playing in sports and positioning themselves for that, as opposed to not being in school, breaking playground equipment and breaking windows and doing all that stuff. Our job's easier, it makes their lives better, and it makes their parents be able to not worry about them and take care of themselves sometimes too.
Yeah, what a clever partnership. I'm so happy to hear that, like the Dolly imprint, right? And her own personal story too. I mean, like she's pouring back into tons and tons of people at this, kids at this point with her legacy. And, she had a rough road to getting to be where she was. So she wasn't handed an easy route. And so it's just, like her story seems like what the doors of affordable housing can do for people too. If you're not the musician and you don't have that natural talent, a door for housing can also stabilize a person. So there's a lot of symbolism there, I think.
There is, and of course, with the storytelling in music and songwriting as storytelling,
Yeah.
she's so great at verbalizing that. You hear her music and hear things like when she sings about her coat growing up, and it was made by her mom, and it was all packed together.
Yeah.
And, you grew up in this area, or you grew up in Appalachia like I did, you can identify with that, because I remember I had patches on my legs when I would go to
Yeah.
school. And, of course, you'd have somebody make fun of you over or
Right.
whatnot, and
Right.
that was just part of life. But, I was blessed in the fact that most of the kids had patches on their hands. So I was probably not the oddball with that.
Well, I remember the stigma of having to be the one in school who bought the clothes from the Goodwill. And man, I used to be furious about that. And now here my kids go to Goodwill for fun. And I'm like, what is there's like these weird things in life that give us stigmas. And then later you're like, really? Was that a stigma? Was that just the my own fragile nature at that moment? Or was I absorbing things that necessarily, kids are mean and you were absorbing what they told you? So like that's a whole backstory, isn't it?
It is, but it also gives you hope that these
Yeah,
kids see value that maybe we didn't see.
true.
And, so they had this different way of thinking. And oftentimes, I think it's a better way of thinking because, what can we repurpose? What can
Yeah.
we do to take some of the strain off the system?
Yep. Well, right. The sustainability of a Goodwill is a whole nother moment. Let's talk about storytelling because I've heard you several times speak on the national stage to thousands of people, and you really, really are refining the storytelling authenticity of affordable housing. And I've seen it more on the NAHRO platform, but tell us about how that's starting to be some of your marching orders for many of us in housing. Tell us how a little bit more about that.
Well, this really started for me about 30 years ago. I was doing a large scale redevelopment in Pikeville, Kentucky. And I had this one particular business that was just dead set against it. Didn't want those people more in the neighborhood
Right.
and all this. And, I'm sitting there and I'm like, how do we combat this? How do we do this? So I went and he ran a small grocery store, and I went and said, listen, can I get a meeting with you? He said, yeah. And he had a little deli in there. And I intentionally did this and set the meeting up for the 3rd of the month. So because I knew exactly he was, my office was in an elderly high rise, 200 units, and I knew his clientele better than he did.
Ooh.
So I said, let's have this meeting at 3rd. I'll buy you lunch at your shop, which made no sense, but I bought him lunch at his shop. And as people were coming in that day, it was the 3rd of the month. If you remember back in those days, the 3rd of the month was a very busy time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Offices, there's just people everywhere, the first of the month. It was chaos.
chaos. So I'm sitting there in where I intentionally sit near his front door. So as he come in, I say, hey, Mrs. Smith, how are you? So we're sitting there for about an hour. And in that hour, I counted 17 people that came in that I spoke to. He said, everybody. I said, these are the people you're against. You're against your own customers.
Wow.
And I said, there's 17 people that came in here at shop here. If we're not here, if you lose 17 customers per hour,
Yeah.
per day, what's that going to do to you? And he said, I never really thought of it that way. I thought of it as people that were going out here and stealing and taking and doing. I said, no, these are the people that are coming into you to buy from you. I said, when one of them was leaving about that time, I said, and that shopping cart's pretty full today. He goes, you're exactly right, it is. He goes, you won't hear another word out of it. So we got to tell our stories and turn detractors into supporters, which he became a supporter that day. Correct. So, and we were able to get this project done. We were able to put 60 beautiful new units in, tax credit units in, just directly up the road from him. And those became his customers as well. So my staff will hear me all the time. These are not always residents. They're customers. They're our customers. And some of our people can't tell those stories. So it's important and imperative that we do, because somebody's going to be telling our story. If they had told our story And he thought they were all going to be people that took from the system, but they were actually people that were making sure that he had a place to live and his kids were educated and that he had the vehicle that he had and the homes that he had. And from that day forward, you know, it was a great situation and he became a supporter. So that's where the story in my mind started, was that one conversation almost 30 years ago. And over the years, you know, I wasn't in the position that I am now to say, we have to tell our stories. We have to tell our stories for our communities and for our residents. And it makes our job so much easier when we tell those stories effectively. And we use stories like that and we bring people and individuals in to those stories. And I truly think that one of the reasons that we've had the funding we've had over the past few years is that people at NAHRO are advocating such a better way that those stories are making an impact. And when, you know, we won the National Postal Contest, What Home Means to Me, a couple of years ago. And we took the winner, and I think she was 11 or 12 at the time. We took her to DC, and we took her to every one of our congressional representatives. This talented young lady is why we do what we do and why you should be doing what you do. And, you know, every one of them except for one that I have a bone with to this day, and I won't name this person's name, came out and, you know, talked and wanted to engage. And that could have faced in a story. And this is an individual that was so shy, you know, she didn't talk to anybody. Now I walk out, she'll see me and she'll run up and give you a hug. So all this stuff ties back into the fabric of community and home. And it all ties ultimately in that we got to tell this story and we got to be good at it. So we can't just be there thinking on the spot. You have to refine that story, because the story I told you about sitting down with the gentleman in his store, I've told over and over and over again, because I hope will encourage people to say, don't give up. Just because you have somebody that is opposed to you at that time, that's an opportunity too for education. So that's why I think it's important. That's why when we were there on the first day at the symposium, we brought together leaders to talk about storytelling. Because my goal is to have some sort of kit for people to take back and say, this is your storytelling kit on how you start refining your story. And I hope we'll have that fairly soon, because, you know, you can take this and start thinking about that interaction that you had could be a story. It might not be your story. It might be the story across the street of a person you help, because we have a lot of stories out there that, you know, we're part of that we're never even going to know that we are part of. So we got to start being really, really focused and intentional about that. And every day, you know, in every conference that I'm involved with while I'm not a president, you're always going to hear about storytelling and the importance and the power of how that affects community. And that affects every single one of us.
You've been challenging us for some good time to be able to actually tell those stories. So let's talk about the manifestation of that, because you know every single person in this industry has almost an obligation, not just to ask for the funds, but they need to talk about the results. They need to talk about the stories. They need to talk about what I like to say is keep your win journal. That's what I tell everybody too, because unfortunately there are a lot of horror stories, and those are the outliers. Those are not the norms throughout the industry. So, you know, we've got to be able to talk about the wins. We've got to be able to talk about the stories, the impacts, the performance measures, all of those, not just allow those horror stories to flare up like they do. Let's talk about NAHRO for a minute here. Congratulations on that in that post. And your term is going to yield a couple of things. You've got an agenda, and but just tell us more about what your goals are for NAHRO. Maybe even for people who aren't members of NAHRO. Like tell us what you guys want to accomplish, what you want to accomplish.
Sure. You know, NAHRO, as you said, it's the largest affordable housing organization in the country. We represent every 26,000 members, most of the housing authorities. So we think it's important that we're crafting this story, and that's really my main focus here is storytelling, and to make sure that we're utilizing those stories and to make sure we're making the impact nationwide. Because you're exactly right. You see the horror story, you see that one that looks bad on the news, but you don't see the stories of when this young child who's a third generation public housing child gets a scholarship because of the hard work they've done. And behind them, you have the housing authority that's provided a safe and affordable place for them to live and to study and to do all that stuff. And all the support system of that kid that's gone out made a difference. And now they're coming back and showing that. So we're going to, we just, NAHRO does a lot of scholarships. And we just put out a document, and I wish I had it sitting here and I would hold it up, but focusing on those scholars. So we're going to have to do a better job, and I think we're doing a good job, but always room for improvement of highlighting, bringing those people back that have gone on. Well, I was just in Oklahoma a month or so ago at Southwest NAHRO, and they had a scholarship winner now that was working at Oklahoma State. And I can't remember the millions of dollars she was bringing back into the educational system. I think it was something like $40 million that this woman that started off as a child and gone through the system, and now she's making this great impact. So can you imagine that millions and millions of dollars she's bringing back to Oklahoma State University because of the small investment we made back here in the scholarship or in public housing or whatever? Those are stories that are not getting told, that need to be told over and over and over again, as far as that goes. And the other thing, we're coming out of COVID. Everybody has been, for 2 years ago, I remember going to my first conference, and I was like, how far do I have to stay away? And have this, and the whole world's changed. So we're really trying at NAHRO to improve the experience of being a NAHRO member. And I think we really did a good job at Nashville of doing that, of, finding locations that are great, but bringing in people for all spectrums. And I think when we look at those training opportunities, that's where we're really hitting it, because it was a diverse training that you could have in between the plenaries. Plenaries I thought were excellent as well, but how do we educate our people so that when they go home, they're not just taking home notes, they're taking home enthusiasm, and they're taking home ideas? And how do we encourage more, not just in the rooms, more networking sessions, so I can say, that works. Well, sometimes it's just important to hear the horror story and what didn't work, so you don't go down that path.
True.
And those have been for my career, the most important rooms I've been in is, in the hospitality, or in the lounge, or in the reception.
Yep.
Find somebody, I say, I know you've done this. Because, when I was a younger houser, I was calling Greensboro and Knoxville and Charleston, South Carolina, all these places, then learning from them.
Yeah.
And actually, that Knoxville, they got tired of me calling them all the time. They hired me. So making these contacts is important, because plagiarism in a lot of ways is a great thing. I don't want to go and do something that I'm like, I just wasted $100,000 for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are precious public dollars that we have to safeguard. And if I can pick up the phone and call Katie, or I can call someone else, I'm going to do it. And on the flip side, I think it's incumbent of us as older housers to give back and to make sure that the next generation of housers are coming in and they have the knowledge, but we got to spark that enthusiasm and keep that lighting, because if it hadn't been sparked to me in some way, in somewhere along the way, who knows where I would have ended up.
Yep.
Off something that doesn't make me feel the way I do when I drive around my community and I say, there's people underneath those roofs having a better life because of what we do.
Yep.
So that's the thing about it, the storytelling and lighting the spark and making sure that the next generation of housers are making sure that the next generation of people that need housing are taken care of.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking about the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. NAHRO is what we commonly call it. I've been posting an awful lot about NAHRO lately, trying to get as many people as I can and urging them to come to Denver in October. Give us a sneak peek of what's on the plan and what's on the agenda for Denver.
Well, Denver should be great. First of all, it's a great city. In October, we're not going to guarantee the weather, but it should be good. But we already have a jam-packed. You can go to NAHRO.org, check out the agenda. It's already out there. It's a fantastic agenda. We're going to have some great keynote speakers. One of them is an individual, but I can't remember her name. One of my great weaknesses is names. But she was on America's Got Talent, I think, and she lost her hearing at a young age when she was a teenager, I think. And now she has refound a love for, she didn't lose her love for singing, but she uses the other senses around her, like vibration and things, to sing. So we're going to bring her in to tell the story of, we all have challenges, but we have a woman who does not have her hearing anymore that is a beautiful singer and telling a story of overcoming obstacles. So we're bringing in people like that. But we just had Raj Chetty, who Mark likes to call her, Mark Thiele, the CEO of NAHRO, the Beyonce of data. So, we're always trying to make sure that we're bringing in things that with great data, great part of the story, but part of the story are these individuals that have overcome obstacles. So we're going to have her there, and we're going to have hopefully 2,000 housers. We've had 2 sellouts in a row. We need a third sellout. And I don't know what the sellout number is, but whatever it is, that's where I want to be, because I can see the energy and the excitement building in NAHRO, because we had a sold out show in DC, and this is an off election year. To sell out an off election year is an anomaly that I hope is not an anomaly moving forward. So come on down. You'll be there. There'll be hundreds of other vendors there. It can be hundreds of houses, and we hope to have 200 or 300 or 400 new houses, because we just had about 118, I think, in Nashville. And that's what we need. We need to keep seeding this and make people understand the value of a safe, affordable place to call home. Because if they have that, that drives everything. That means that employers have the employees they need.
Mm-hmm.
That means that grocers have the customers they need. That means the restaurants have the customers and the work staff they need. And so we got to realize this is all a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we got to be a positive member of that.
I just looked it up while you were talking. It's Mandy Harvey is her name, and singer-songwriter, author, who is deaf, but she transforms silence into sound and connection. So what a unique inclusion there to the agenda for Denver. So everybody can check out NAHRO, NAHRO. Just put in that with Denver and they'll get right to the link. And I've been posting about it. You've been posting about it. So lots of people trying to make sure. I mean, it really is more than just attending a conference. Like I've even been talking about like the hallway wins, not just the panels, not just the slides, but how you mentioned you pick up the phone and call somebody and it's like, I'm getting a no on this from my local office. I need to know how you made it a yes. And just the value of that alone is phenomenal. So again, my plug, it's more than just a conference, isn't it?
It's much more than a conference. And you're exactly right. The hallways are the best place to be.
Yep.
I mean, you walk through there and you see, oh, I need to talk to him.
Yep.
And, you grab your notebook and that person may be involved in a conversation now. I'll write it down. And next time I see you, I'm not going to forget. Yep. I'm going to pull you to the side, because there's so many unique housing agencies. We toured MBHA, the National Housing Authority. while we were there. I'm not sure if you got to do the tour, but it was fantastic. They built the football stadium.
Yeah.
They owned the Swiss Library. They built the convention center. On top of providing stellar housing,
Yep.
they're providing economic development. I think they administer the TIF program. So they do so much that they own half the parking garages in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many unique things and unique ways that housing authorities just need to say, okay, we're not in this box. And if we aren't, we're pushing the boundaries to make that box bigger. So, we just, in Tennessee a couple years ago, as we go through the RAD process, so many of us are starting to utilize tax credits. And as you create these tax credit entities, they can't be insured. We're self-insured. Well, don't tell us we can't. Let's just change the law. So we changed the law so that now we can insure our entities that administer tax credit programs into it. So there's a 25 or 30% savings right there. So we got to always be thinking outside the box, pushing those boundaries, legally pushing those boundaries to make sure that we're providing the best possible resources to our communities. And the way we do that is by saving money sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And, the synergy of getting some of those regional partnerships and then expanding it to national. So, well, Sean, I really appreciate your time. Again, I've been talking with Sean Gilbert, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Valley Housing Services and the President of NAHRO. Sean, thank you so much for your time. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
Sure. I just want to say thank you, Katie, for having me. This has been a pleasure. I'm a nerd for this stuff. My wife tells me all the time, you can talk about something else besides housing or football. And, I don't know if that's possible or not, but, the whole thing here is, we need to ignite the system and ignite people to realize that this industry can give you a great life, but it can really make you feel better about yourself and your community, because there's nothing that makes me feel better to know that there's people out there that are living a better life because of what we do.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for an industry to live in, and I know sometimes I'm a cheerleader for the industry, but I think, truly for me, I couldn't have picked a better choice as far as moving forward and making an impact and making sure that every American has a place to call home.
Absolutely agree. So it's proud to work alongside you, Sean. And with that, you can find Sean on LinkedIn. You can find him on NAHRO. So thank you so much for your time, Sean.
Thank you, Katie. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Changemakers with Katie Goar. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.